You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week, we're going to continue our series on discipleship. And if you remember, we kind of really believe that discipleship is kind of a core foundation of who we are, followers of Jesus, and that it's not something that we put in the corner. And as Wesleyans, as Zach and I both are, we have these discipleship questions that are available to us through Wesley that he used with his Holy Club. And depending on which resource you use, depends on the number of questions. We're going to be using the list of 22 questions found on the General Board of Discipleship website for the next 2 weeks. We're going to be looking over these the next 2 weeks. And so Zach, as you look at those first 10 questions, what, how do they speak to you, or what are they, or what,
Sure. I always love to preface talking about these questions. And if I had to sit in front of John Wesley and answer these questions every time I saw him, or every time I met with a group in my Holy Club, I'd be pissed because they are not, they're not easy questions if you're honest with yourself, but they're also very intimate questions. And so what I want to do is just go through and give you the first 10 or 11 of them, and then talk about a couple of them. And so they start out because there's a very definite progression of being honest with yourself and your spirituality and where you are in those moments, and they just build on one another. And so if we're not honest in one of these, it begins to burden the rest of the questions. And so the first one is, am I consciously or unconsciously creating the impression that I am better than I really am? In other words, am I a hypocrite? That is where he starts. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's such a John Wesley thing to do. The next one is, am I honest in all my acts and words, or do I exaggerate? It's a fun one to answer, honestly. Do I confidently pass on to another what was told to me in confidence? Can I be trusted? Am I a slave to dress, friends, works, or habits? Am I self-conscious, self-pitying, or self-justifying? Did the Bible live in me today? Do I give it time to speak to me every day? Am I enjoying prayer? When did I last speak to someone else about my faith? And do I pray about the money I spend? Those are the first 11 questions, and they're not easy questions. And I think for me, it depends on what setting. I don't know. That's a tough way to put that. What setting I'm in. I try to be consistent in every setting, right? But simply, can I be trusted? Can you honestly answer that question as a yes or no? I mean, these aren't, well, maybe I can be trusted here or there. Can you be trusted? I mean, that is an across the board yes or no answer that we have to be honest with ourselves. I think the one that gets me, the most out of all of them do. Am I self-conscious, self-pitying, or self-justifying? That may be the question out of all of these that really, really digs deep, and I have to be super honest in it. Was I self-aware today? Did I give myself a little extra pity when I shouldn't have? Or did I justify an action that caused harm, or that shouldn't have been justified? And for me, I think that's the one that tries to answer the question of do good, do no harm, and stay in love with God. It sinks into that of, did I do those things? And was I aware enough of it to say, oh man, I hurt someone today, or my actions or words it didn't do good, or or we're really bad about self-justifying things in our life of, well, so-and-so did something, and so I'm justified, and that's number 6 on the list. That's a freaking hard question. And so that's kind of where those hit me, just on the very surface level of, here are these questions, and if we answer them honestly, they can be tough questions.
So as I look at this list and I think of, I'll use a baseball analogy here.
You use a baseball analogy?
Me use a baseball analogy. Imagine that.
We've never done that on this podcast.
Never. By the way, Cards are in first place by half a game. As a hitter, when you're a hitter, which I was never a hitter, but as a hitter, you ask yourself, what mechanics are you doing wrong to not to hit or not hit the ball? And you have to be honest about yourself. And I think the same way as in our faith is that we have to be honest with ourselves in order for us to grow, in order for us to move forward in our faith. We have to be willing to ask ourselves these questions. And they're phenomenal questions. They're not easy questions, but I don't, knowing how much Wesley valued discipleship, almost to the point where it drove others mad, that taking these seriously, they're not easy, but they would shape and enhance your faith in such a way that, could be, life-changing. Mm-hmm. So, I think of these and I look at these, and, the one that definitely speaks to me, and, this is someone who's a clergy person, and, funds are definitely limited, not only, in church life, but also in personal life, is, number 11, do I pray about the money I spend? And that's, church money or, personal money. Do I pray about that? Is it, and asking myself, is this really something we need to be spending our money on? I mean, could you imagine if you did that in your everyday life, if, instead of going out to eat, you were going to be more resourceful and, ate at home or, whatever, and be prayerful about that, man. Just imagine what that could do to your life. And, the other one, did the Bible live in me today? Thinking about how, to utilize scripture in our daily lives, how does that speak to us? How does that shape the way that we think and act and, do justice and love mercy? And, and then the other one that really stuck to me, I think this is the one, so I worked backwards, would be number 5. Am I a slave to dress, friends, work, or habits? And it's not those first couple ones. It's that last one. What habits am I a slave to? And, and if we're going to do better in our daily walks with life, we have to develop habits that are healthy. And it goes back to hitting. If you're going to be a good hitter, you have to do really healthy hitting habits. And, there's all sorts of books on how to do that. Just like in faith, there are all sorts of books on how to live your faith and develop habits that are healthy for you. And I think when we take that idea seriously of the habits that we're developing to be healthy and to become a slave to them. Now, granted, that's not necessarily a great terminology to use, but if we can submit ourselves to healthy habits, daily habits of reading scripture, prayer, being in prayer, all those things that we've talked about to grow our discipleship, it's amazing to see how our life shapes and change just by doing those things. And these questions, they're not easy and they're not light, but I think they can provide for us, if we utilize them in our daily lives, they can provide for us a focus that I think sometimes is missing in our faith.
Well, and I think that's the thing is what these questions do is they allow us to focus when we're honest, right? These questions are not designed or intended to make you feel guilty or to belittle you or anything like that and say you're not good enough. That's not Wesley's intent here. His intent is that very thing is, out of these questions, when we answer them honestly, where does our focus begin to align, right? Where do we begin to be aware of, here's where I need work today? And maybe it's, I'm not enjoying prayer. And so how do I look at the season of my life? How do I look at the ways that I pray? And if it's not working, if I'm not enjoying it, what do I need to leave behind and grow into? These questions are all about taking a step back, examining our mental health, our spiritual health, and our physical health, and saying, oh, here's where I'm at. Here's what's working. Here's not what's working, or what's not working. And how do I take a step forward to enjoy my prayer more? To even just be intentional about telling somebody about my faith, whether that's out loud or just living my faith in a way that the Bible lived in you that day. I mean, all of these questions work within one another, and it's just being aware enough to go, okay, here's where I'm at as a person. Here's where I'm at as a disciple. And if we read these and we answer yes, oh yes, I do all these things. Are you really? And like I said, that's not a guilt thing. That's just an honesty thing. And it's okay to answer these honest and go, oh, maybe I need some work here. Maybe I'm not enjoying this, or maybe I'm not praying over how I spend my money. And how can I get better at that? And try it and see how it changes the way you spend money, whether that's you're a clergy person and you're spending money in church and at home, or if you're a business person and you're making financial decisions in multiple places. How does that begin to change the way you spend money or spend your time? Or, like Matt said, the habits that you have, how do those things begin to change when we leave room for the Spirit to work as we answer these questions together?
So I think that's a good place to spend focus in the next couple of weeks, is to open yourself up to the possibilities of, where God is leading you. And with this being like the kind of the back to school, like back to discipleship time for a lot of churches, maybe sitting down with a group of people and going over these, 22 questions, maybe one a week, or maybe, however you all feel led to do those questions. There's a lot of good resources, Methodist resources and tools out there to dive into these questions, to utilize. And I think that just by even utilizing these questions, it'd be amazing to see what would happen, and being a part of that. And so encourage you to dive in on that. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.